Welcome to the Melanin Jelly Project Conversations, a podcast that celebrates diversity and representation in children's storytelling, entertainment, and edutainment. I am the host, Olunosen Louisa Ivaze. On this podcast, I chat with authors and creators of children's books, entertainment, and edutainment. This is also a collaboration with the Ottawa Black Book Club. So welcome Farastein, Mokwenye, to our podcast. I call this the Conversations Podcast, but it's under the Melanin Jelly Project, which I set up to educate young people, children, about the continent of Africa. So, Farastein is the author of Tales of JIDEOFOR. I'll start by asking, tell me about yourself and what inspired you to write Tales of JIDEOFOR.
Well, I'm actually an engineer, so it's sort of a fun thing.
Okay.
But I've had the general idea since 2017. I'm quite active on Facebook.
Okay.
Just like I said I'm an engineer, so Tales of JIDEOFOR is actually my debut novel. I'm actually working on this, but it's actually 3 books. Second book, I'm actually in the process of writing the second book.
Okay.
So, like I was trying to say before, the general idea for Tales of JIDEOFOR had come up from a Facebook post I had made way back in 2017.
Okay.
But back then I was quite active on Facebook, not as it was today. Now Facebook is almost old school today. But back then Facebook was still the real deal.
It was still the main thing, yeah.
Yeah, so I had like a following from all over the world, from India, from Europe, from North America, and everywhere. So I've written like this YouTube posts about the transatlantic slave trade.
Mm-hmm.
From the reaction I got from my friends, from my followers, I got to see that a lot of persons were really interested in this topic. Not just Africans like ourselves, but the Europeans as well, but Indians as well. Everyone was really peculiarly interested in this should I say, topic.
Okay.
So from that, I could figure that indeed this would really be an interesting topic, interesting thing to delve in. So for 2020, I've written a short story, like the same name as well, Tales of JIDEOFOR, for Goge Africa Writing that same year. And Tales of JIDEOFOR, the short story version, was one of the 8 finalists.
Okay.
So that gave me basically like more proof that indeed people are interested in this thing that I'm doing, interested in transatlantic space. So during the lockdown 2020, then I was working at one of the biggest private farms in Southwest Nigeria, in the Baland, So I had so much time, so much freedom to delve in deeper. And basically, I had nothing to do apart from farm. Then I had so much free time for myself. So what else to do than to be productive in the way I can be?
Okay.
And this idea has something flowing around in my thoughts. So the months I spent 10 months at the farm then, at the pilot stage of the development of the farm. Those 10 months were the foundational months in which I actually, prepared the blueprint inside the development of the storyline of Tales of JIDEOFOR. I wrote most of it. The book is actually divided into 8 parts.
Okay.
I wrote about 5 parts of the farm. Being, enmeshed in such a setting, but the farm was really in the depths of Ondo, cut away from the city life from home.
Okay.
Being in such an environment, villagers, in such an African setting, it felt quite like right in the mood, because I was writing a story about rural Africa back in the days before the influence of our colonialist things and all of that. So being in such a setting that in a way cuts off from our life today that is so influenced by the Europeans, set the mood for me for the storytelling, because I really got to see the mud houses, the rural setup of how villagers live their daily lives and all of that. So it really gave me the motivation. 12 in Japan. Today we have Tales of JIDEOFOR.
Okay, fantastic. I'm really impressed. Yeah. So why transatlantic slave trade?
Well, origin for the idea of Tales of JIDEOFOR come to me from a dream, actually.
Like JIDEOFOR.
Yeah, like JIDEOFOR. Just as readers will get to see the story, it is not just a story of history, but also a story of dreams, as well as African spirituality. These are the three themes of the story: history, African spirituality, and dreams. So the story of dreams is because it's actually from my own dream, from my own subconscious mind. So the general idea come from the dream I had. That felt quite weird, just as it was for the surrounding transatlantic slave trade. Before I'd written the Facebook post. Again, I'm like a history buff. I'm particularly interested in
Same here. I think that's the connection. That's the connection, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm keenly interested in history because personally I believe that if you don't know where you are coming from, then definitely you cannot know where you are headed.
Yeah.
That is one of the...
Yeah. I read, you know what you just said now? I read sociology. And there's something we call sociological thinking. Understanding the past, studying the past helps you understand the present and predict the future.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I believe the transatlantic slave trade history is quite dark. For that obvious. So it is avoided not just by scholars, but by the everyday person in the street. Which, when you keep something in darkness, it's almost mystified, sort of. The Tales of JIDEOFOR is my own attempt at demystifying the transatlantic slave trade history. Even though it is fiction, it is based on my months of research on this transatlantic slave trade era. So being a history buff, and I'm someone who is truly interested in our African tradition. Tales of JIDEOFOR as well is also a story of my own place of Ila. The character JIDEOFOR is from Ila. Actually from Ila. Delta State. Just by the banks of the river Niger, separating Delta and Anambra State. Yeah, so it is not just a story of the transatlantic slave trade history, it's also a story of my hometown as well.
Okay.
Give or take, that is the reason why I'm history buff, interested in the transatlantic slave trade, wanting to share my own story of share my own understanding from the research I've done about the different opinions, most of them are often wrong, that people have. It's just my own attempt at trying to clarify this dark period.
Okay, because I was thinking of it. I love history. People assume that, I went to Africa. That is, I said, what part of Africa? Africa is we have 54 sovereign countries on the continent. So I started with this. So when I did this crowning glory, I was talking about African hairstyles and how it's the inspiration. So this is an introduction to, African hair tradition. And then I went on to the African safari where I was introducing people to indigenous African animals found in Africa, because a lot of people don't understand that tigers and kangaroos are not indigenous to the continent. Yes, in Africa, tigers and lions do not meet in the wild because we don't have tigers in Africa. If you remember the story of Tarzan, he had a pet tiger. That was an error. That was wrong.
Complete error, yeah.
Because we don't have tigers here unless they are brought. Yeah. So that is my romance with history. You understand? And in fact, there's a book I'm putting out in December for children, to which where I'm exploring indigenous African recipes and how through the Atlantic slave trade, those recipes were taken and modified. Different parts, yes. And so it actually it starts with the history of jollof rice, how jollof rice came to be. Yeah, so it starts with that, and how jollof rice, from the ancient Senegambia, and how it went on to other parts of Africa, and then West Africa, and then from there, food and all of that to other parts of the world.
All over the world, yeah.
Yes, akara that we have in Nigeria, we have it in Brazil. It's called akaraje.
Caribbean, yeah.
Yes, in the Caribbean. So a lot of people don't understand these kind of things. So those are the things. But for you to write about transatlantic slave trade for young adults, Don't you think it's a very heavy topic? Don't you think it's very heavy for young people?
Yeah, it's quite heavy. One of the reasons why it's actually a historical romance.
Okay.
Not just historical fiction, but historical romance fiction.
Okay.
One reason my target audience was younger, basically adolescents, was that all of the mystery surrounding the slave trade era, if they are not inspired at the young age, most of them would grow up with it as culture, as they believe. So the basic idea is to catch them young, sort of using a love story as well. Love story between JIDEOFOR all the way from Ila and Jane, Caribbean, who's originally from Cuba. So all my young readers will find it really interesting. A love story that actually between characters. Two of them are like main characters of the novel. So one of the reasons my target audience are young adults is because I want to catch them young. All of the ideas I have, the story that readers will come to see the story, they are actually prepared in the language I've used, storytelling, targeted at young minds. My belief is that if I can get a hold of them now, to help demystify all of the propaganda they find on television, they find in the movies and all of that now. Because if I should let them grow up into their 20s, I'm in my 20s now, and I know the number of Nigerians my own age have of the transatlantic state. Opposite from the actual reality. Using my target for the young adults.
I'm actually impressed that you are in your 20s and you're writing something so deep. I'm touched. I'm actually touched. The slave trade, I feel that slave trade has been romanticized through the years, and I'm happy that now Hollywood is beginning to tell the truth. The first movie I saw that really gave a little glimpse of the reality of slave trade was Roots, when I first saw Roots. And then when I saw this movie, Amistad. You've not seen it? Yes. Roots was on NTA in the 90s. Yes, when I was in secondary school, I saw Roots. So Roots, they used to show Roots then every evening. Kunta Kinte, yeah. So that was the first time I saw, okay, this is what people go through. It just gave me a glimpse. Then when I saw the movie Amistad captured maybe 5% of what goes on in that horrible ship. You know how they put people in, like chat, they put human beings,
like
cargo and all of that. Then I read this book by Lawrence Hill. What's that book again? The Book of Negroes. The first time I visited Canada for the first time in 2011. And I just saw the book in the bookstore and I went, oh, okay, what book is this? And I picked the book. And then I started reading. Oh my God. And I remember writing it down that one day I would chat with this author. I would talk with this author and ask him about his writing. And I was honored to interview him on our book club last year. In fact, when I interviewed Lawrence Hill, was it August last year? I said, 2022 can end now. I'm okay. I'm good. Yes, I said, yeah. So that is the thing. So for me, when I meet young writers, I'm always excited. I'm always happy to promote and to push and say, yes, keep doing what you are doing, Yeah, but from the books I read when I was growing up about slavery, it was always romanticized in the sense that, it would be the slave girl in love with her white master and he takes pity on her, that kind of thing. I didn't understand the reality.
It was always from the European. This was why at Tales of JIDEOFOR, an African perspective this time around, not
Exactly. And let me see. Is this hold on, let me see if it's this is the French version. Hold on, I'll show you something here. So this is one of my children. This is my children's book, Crowning Glory, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So what I did was, in every book, let's see now. Hold on. Okay. See this? So in every book, so I brought in, this is the goddess Oshun, and how her these were maps of escape routes
Yes.
And then, so what I did, I made sure I did then was, at the end of all my books, I always write a letter here. There's always a letter for the readers here to explain to them here. So these are the African 54 countries. Then there's always a letter here. And in this letter, that's where I say the stories of indigenous people is always the colonized version.
Yeah.
Because in my very first job in 2003, I started off as an English teacher, and I realized that the content we had were colonized versions of everything. Yeah, the ones. How can you tell me that some white man somewhere discovered River Niger? So my ancestors that lived by the Niger,
living by the bank.
Is it good? The banks, is it that they closed their eyes and they were not seeing that, they didn't notice there was a river there? You know, those kind of questions. Yeah. So talk us through your writing process, because let's say a young person now wants to start writing historical stories about history. Me, I will come from my own angle. You talk us through your writing process as a young person, because this is really deep. Yeah, this book, this is really deep, and I'm going to read it again. It's really, really deep. So if you notice that I'm not going through the content, I'm not breaking it down here, because that will be going through a lot. You understand? And I feel that it would be something that would be great to discuss at maybe like a book club setting, Yes. So talk us through your writing process.
Well, for me, just like I said, luckily enough, almost like the idea come to me years ago, but I had so much time during the lockdown to expand on the blueprint that already formed in my mind.
Okay.
For me, since I'm writing historical fiction, I had to do quite a number of research. I spent, let's say, almost years basically.
Okay.
10 years delving deeper into trying in my own way to understand it better before I make it into it. Let's say, for example, the way a number of us, especially young folks that are in Africa today, one of the ideas we have of that era is that Europeans came with their ship and took us. But no, it was actually a trade. So we must see it from the perspective of people. There's a buyer and there's a seller.
Some were taking, some were taking, then people got greedy and started to sell.
It became a business eventually. From my research, the Portuguese were actually the first to go into
I thought it was the Arabs.
Yeah. The Arab version of the slave trade was occurring in East Africa. Quite some mile away from West Africa. So, but the West African transatlantic slave trade, the Arab was through the Indian Ocean. They take them down to Oman and Yemen and all of that.
Okay.
But the Arab slave trade actually had influenced the European transatlantic slave trade.
Okay.
Because back in the days, Iberia, which is today Spain and Portugal, are actually the first nations to be involved in the slave trade. And they got involved immediately after they had expelled the Arabs from their own country, from their own land. So imagine expelling people who kept Africa. It became like a culture basically. So they too, when they had come all the way down to today's Edo state, they expand how rich the land was, how plenty it was, and our abundance of wealth and people and resources and all of that. But one thing that escapes a lot of Africans is that we Africans already kept slaves. It was already our culture there. So it wasn't as if the Europeans came here to institute slavery. That is one need people have of slavery was already ongoing, not just in Africa, but all over the world, from Roman times down to slavery in some form.
So you're trying to say there has always been human inequality.
Yes.
Even in Bible days.
Very day.
Okay.
Some version of slavery. I believe it was one of the last nations to make slavery illegal was Mauritania in West Africa, and they did that just in 2006.
Oh wow!
So until 2006, it was still legal to own slaves in Mauritania, West Africa. It wasn't really a.
Hold on. Sorry to interrupt. To own slaves or to have workers?
to own slaves, somebody who is your personal property, who you could buy and sell off, just as it was during the transatlantic slave trade. So it wasn't really a European idea, but indeed, chattel slavery, as it was practiced in North and South America and the Caribbean, was way different from the version of slavery we are practiced in Africa. The general idea here was, although people owned people on the basis of labor to use free labor, but the treatment of the slave, so to say, was way different. Though they were property, but they still had some human dignity, which was lost when they took them to North and South America. Then they almost became, in North and South America, they almost became subhuman. Because of course, the European who light skin would not really consider you with your afro hair as exactly the same type of person that he is. Somehow, you must be subhuman and he is the complete human. So when the Portuguese came here and started the trade, basically, a number of times they would raid coasts and steal a number of villagers from coastal fronts. But indeed, how much slaves did you take? How many communities are actually by the coastal front? Very few. Like in Nigeria, of course, you should know it. Usually the Jaws and the Shekiri live by the coast. But when it became a business, which is why Tales of JIDEOFOR is based on the 18th century, at the very zenith of the slave trade. By the 18th century, in the 1700s, it had already developed into a complete business. Where slave raiders would go into the hinterland, like Ila, as it is in Spain. Ila is quite some miles away from the ocean. But during that era of the 18th century, it was common practice that slaves would be brought 400 miles from the hinterland and dragged all the way to the coast to be sold. Because by then, it was already a business. This was the same era that our pidgin English, as we used to say, this was the foundational years. The African sellers, this was the language of the medium of communication between the African sellers and the European buyer. The term Oyibo, I'm sure when you read along, you find out in the story as well. In Nigeria, we use the term Oyibo to refer to light-skinned Africans and also as well to Europeans. That term came to be in the 18th century as well, and it's actually coming from the Igbo word, Igbo phrase, Onyigo, which means Igbo person.
Igbo person. Okay.
From how far you've read in the story, that's in part 1, Africa, my Africa. So that term came to be in the 18th century when the slave trade had already become a business, what is today modern day Nigeria. And there was this preference for Igbo slaves, especially in the Caribbean.
Why?
Somehow, Igbo slaves tend to, I don't know why exactly, but from the research I have done, it seems that Igbo slaves tend to be more hardworking, profitable settlers. The Caribbean is almost in the same climate zone as West Africa.
As West Africa?
Divided into two, rainy season and the dry season. So Igbo slaves were particularly wanted by the European buyers. So oftentimes when they would come down to the coast to trade with the actual Ijaw, the Shekiri, the Urobo sellers who would sell off the slaves, they would always request for Oyibo. That was their own way of saying Oyibo. So they would request for Oyibo. Do you have Oyibo for me? So since the Europeans would always request for Oyibo, it became, and indeed the Igbo people tend to be lighter skinned. Even in today's modern day Nigeria, Igbo people tend to be lighter skinned than other Africans. So it became not just a term for light skinned Africans, but generally for the Europeans as well who wanted
Oyibo. Okay. Oh wow. Okay, I see. Because when you talk about the preference for Igbo slaves, I remember when I was reading the book of Negroes by Lawrence Hill. I remember that there was a part in the book where they preferred West African slaves to East African slaves because they felt that because of our build that we're sturdy and we're stronger. Because if you look at North Africans, and East Africans, they tend to be taller and thinner than us. Lankier. Yes, they are. Okay. Now it makes sense. So you talk a lot about, like this beginning here, the spirits, Ogbanje, Amosu, Dibia, Chi. How important do you think it is for young people to have an understanding of African spirituality? Because one thing I've realized, and I tell people, is what Christianity does not understand, it condemns. We are not all, our practices are not,
We are not all devil worship.
Contrary to the popular belief that, we are heathens, all our practices are devil worship. I had to explain to somebody one time that, do you realize that a lot of Christian practices is deeply rooted in paganism?
Very much so.
Yes.
Continue. That's what I was trying to say, that if you do not know where you are coming from, you cannot be trusted that you know where you are headed. One reason I believe Africa is the way it is today, because somehow we've been severed from our roots. And one of the important aspects that connects you to your roots is actually spirituality, nothing else. The Chinese are spiritually rooted to their ancestors.
Shinto and all those things,
The Europeans in their own way are spiritually rooted to their ancestors. The Jews in their own way are spiritually rooted to their ancestors. It is basically just us Africans who look back on our ancestors and think of them as pagans, as savages.
Have you noticed all other? I saw something somewhere where they say all other nationalities, their gods look like them. It's only us. God doesn't.
It's different for Africans.
Yeah, I told somebody the image of Jesus that we use is wrong. Go and read
Very wrong. Very wrong.
Bronze hair, woolly hair.
Like that.
Yes, I said go and read how Jesus was described in the Bible. You understand?
They make him seem like a European, but he's not. He's not a European.
He is not. Blonde hair, blue eyes. In fact, Daddy Freeze put up a photo of the guy who acted Jesus of Nazareth. His picture has been used for a very long time.
Charlie in West Africa.
Daddy Freeze put up a picture of him taking a cigarette break during shooting. But I saw it and I had a good laugh. I said, very good. Yes, I said very, very good. Yeah, very good. So how important do you think it is for young people to know African spirituality?
It's one reason I actually, just as I said, the novel has three main themes, apart from love, like I said, of depth, everything. History, African spirituality, and
yeah. So
just like I was saying, it is extremely important. Our African spirituality is at the center of our culture. Okay. The very language, the Igbo language is like I'm Igbo person, Delta. It is deeply rooted in Igbo spirituality. I can't speak the language effectively if I don't understand the spirituality. Because everything about life stems from, at least for me personally, that's my personal belief, it stems from the spirit.
Okay. So that's the chi?
Yeah, the chi, exactly. Chi is like the Igbo term for soul.
So, okay, I came across chi from Things Fall Apart for the very first time. Chi, and I was like, okay.
Yeah. So it's one reason I ensured that this was a thing that was elaborated deeply in story, even down to the afterlife. It's much of like a spoiler now, but the entire story of Tales of JIDEOFOR is not just a story of this life here on this version of reality, but the afterlife, because the way most of us see it, it's almost as if you're either going to the Christian hell or the Christian heaven.
Or purgatory.
Yeah, or purgatory for
us Catholics. Or purgatory.
But the concept should be, what of your ancestors who were around 500 years ago, 400 years ago, that had no sort of concept of all of that?
So they're all in hell. They're all born in hell. Exactly, they're all born in hell.
But so we must get to learn their own understanding of the afterlife, which is the story of reincarnation, which is one of the themes of the Tales of JIDEOFOR. This is coming from the African people. The way Africans saw it, we all had like a destiny to fulfill in this lifetime. If this destiny is not fulfilled, or it is fulfilled partly, we would come again, we would revisit life again to ensure the message we are here to fulfill is carried out. And even if you read the Bible with, should I say, an open mind, you find out that reincarnation is not just like an African opinion. It is, personally to me, just like I said, I'm a history buff. From my studies of history so far, it is the most common opinion of the afterlife. Actually, you see it in Buddhist history in East Asia, you see it in African culture, in West Africa, East Africa. You see it in European culture. You see it in Jewish culture in the Bible. Like there's several scenes in the Bible where Christ is asked, is it Jeremiah, is it Elijah? There's a reason they're asking all of this, because the prophets tend to come again and again, taking up different forms, but still the same message.
I didn't think of it like that. Oh, you know, as much as I love history, spirituality, and all of that, I'm that person who, I think on YouTube, every documentary they have on aliens and UFOs, I've watched all of them. Then I've watched, in fact, one I'm watching on Netflix, Strange Encounters. I like all those type of things. You know, the only thing I had to stop watching is Paranormal Activity. You know how you sit in your house and your chair starts moving, all those things. I stopped watching that one because I went, no, it starts freaking you out. Especially if you live alone, you'll be like, I beg, what's happening? Yes, but with history, you know, and all of that. But reincarnation is something I've always questioned. I believe that, yes, there's a way people, because I always go, once you die, you die. But I have seen documentaries on reincarnations where children tell you that I was so and so. They will take you to where that person lived. Yeah. They will tell you how the person died
from the previous life.
Yes, they will show you things from previous life. And then I go, there has to be an explanation for this.
Yes.
A woman said,
go ahead. I was trying to say, like, out of the different opinions from different traditions and faiths, only opinion of the afterlife that seems to have some scientific basis is that of reincarnation, which is some of the accounts you are giving now.
Yes.
Okay, let's say the heaven and hell, we do not have concrete proof, really. But these are children, 6 years old, 5 years old, with stories of this nature that can be corroborated by different accounts.
Yeah.
It's not just happening in certain parts of the world, it's happening everywhere.
Everywhere.
Definitely not being made up, it's not in propaganda. There must be some scientific basis to it, which is why the concept of reincarnation is common all over the world, not just from Africa, not just from Asia, but all over the world. The North and South American Indians, I don't want to use the term Indians, the Native Americans. Yes, they have this concept of reincarnation. So for it to be that widespread, there have to be some basis, even though, of course, different traditions with their different opinions, and people, should I say, the Nigerian version of it, cut and join. But there has to be some core basis.
There has to be. Yeah, like in Canada, we call them indigenous people. So, like, for me, when I hear about certain things, if I want to know the truth about a lot of things, like I was looking at, I was doing some research into petrified giants. I don't know if you've heard. You know, like they said, giants once walked the earth.
Roamed North America.
The earth. And people said, oh, it's not true. So I started with the Bible, where that time, portion where they said, God said, no longer should I dwell with man, where they said, the angels beheld the beauty of the daughters
of men
and came down, and then giants roamed the earth after that. So I now put 2 and 2 together. I said, okay, it now makes sense. When we watch all those, you know, historical, all those epic movies where you will have half man, half goat, have this, all the powerful people, Zeus, all those gods and so on. So maybe that was that period. And then they said, look around you. You see mountains that look like human faces and all of that. And somebody now explained that if you think of the flood, because somebody said, so how did the giants die off? And somebody said maybe the flood came, washed,
and wiped them off.
Then maybe many of them are hidden in plain sight. That when you look, you will see them. You understand? So when I see such things, what I always do is I like to go to indigenous history, because there's a lot of whitewashing of history. So I always like to go to indigenous history to read, okay, how did this, what are indigenous people saying? Like, we call it indigens.
Yes.
I know I'm the indigene of this place, means I'm indigenous to this place. Okay, what stories are they telling about this? So from that, I'm able to make sense to say, okay, let me put these 2 and 2 together to think, oh, really? Oh, this is how this happened. Okay, so this is what this is. Okay, so For a young person, okay, now that you've written this kind of story now, and we have young people now who feel that, because a lot of young people these days, they will tell you that if it's not on the internet, they are not interested, the Gen Zs. So how do you think that Gen Zs can find deeper meaning when studying history? Because some of them really do not care. Some of them really don't care. Yeah, they don't
Actually,
really
the majority of them they don't.
So how do you get them? Because this book will appeal to like my group of readers, and even older than me. Yeah. So how do you think that this kind of book can appeal?
One of the appeal I've included was the love story.
Okay,
love is quite universal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
From
love
the
is
past very universal. It's one of the universal stories. And of course, for younger folks, the internet is there for us to explore. But we have to actually go out in the world to explore.
Okay.
One of the means of this exploration, at least to me, for someone like you, like reading gives you like a portal, not just into the world, but into the mind of the author who is telling the story.
Okay.
So, for any of them who's interested in history, interested in transatlantic slave trade, interested in how life was in Africa back in the day, so Tales of the JIDEOFOR will really appeal. Even if you take away romance story, that's the reason why it's younger. Language that are used is targeted at people aged between that age bracket, from teenagers to people who are my own age in their 20s.
Okay.
That's one of the appeal.
Okay, so talk to us about Mary Jane Flowers. Tell us about
Mary Jane's Flower is JIDEOFOR's love. And she's critical to the storytelling, because in some way, Tales of JIDEOFOR is also a story of Mary Jane's Flower, because it shows the European perspective of the slave trade. But she's quite unique because she's minded, way different, advanced from the culture and time she was born in. The reason she was able to fall in love with a Negro slave, which in that day and time was basically like a taboo, even worse than a taboo. But as you find in the story, it's way different. It's actually a love story. He fell in love with his whole personality, because he too was very curious. Was somebody, because back in the days, their love story, although it's a little spoiler that you come to find in the story, their love story formed when she caught JIDEOFOR reading. Back in that day and time, it was forbidden for slaves to be taught how to read. Which today it's almost laughable when you see people who can read but do not read. Yeah. It's as if the key has been handed to you. This was something your ancestors were prevented from learning.
Prevented from doing, Yes,
and now you have that. Now you can read. So why don't you? There must be something in books that they didn't want your ancestors to find out back then. That's why they are Lord reading.
Okay.
Two characters, Mary Jane and JIDEOFOR, would be their first encounter would be when she caught him reading. But since she's way advanced from her time, she didn't find it as a crime. She actually felt attracted that a Negro was so interested in reading that because he wouldn't find a book, right? He had to steal it. Basically stolen consequences. Yeah. So someone who could go through all that read just to learn was really interesting for her, because it was somebody who really loved to read as well. When she came over, because in the story she's coming over from France. There was a pandemic then in France, the early 1700s. So all of that really fits in well, because there was a pandemic when I was writing all of that.
Okay.
2020. So there was a pandemic, like a version of the Black Plague. So she had to return back home to her mother. She's the only child of her mother. Her father is unique. Her character is quite unique. One of the models that I've used in developing the story was the love story between Jack and Rose in the movie Titanic. I'm pretty sure you've seen Titanic before.
Yes.
Jack and Rose are from two different worlds. On the ship, Rose is from first class, Jack is from third class. It's almost the same way this love story between JIDEOFOR and Mary Jane, only heir, the rich slave owner, and JIDEOFOR on the other end, of the contract, is an African slave all the way from Africa. But they found a common ground that united them. For Jack and Rose, it was painting, it was drawing. But for Mary Jane and JIDEOFOR, it's storytelling, it's books, it's reading. So two of them will come up for conversation and basically discuss together. And from there, their love story will develop. I don't want to give much spoilers.
I was gonna use the word. I came here, because I came across, mulatto. You know how back in the day people use the word half caste and mulatto. They're actually derogatory terms, and people
very
don't.
Offensive terms. They are very offensive. Mulatto actually means mule.
Mule, yeah.
So when you call somebody a mulatto, you are calling them a mule.
Even half caste is like, it's more respectful to say the person is biracial or mixed race.
Or mixed race. Sorry.
Or even mixed breed. Breed is animals you breed.
Animals are the breed.
Yes, you don't breed human beings. Yes, it's so disrespectful. So disrespectful. So tell us about your publishing. How did you get published?
Luckily for me, as I would say again, by serendipity, my editor is from Jamaica.
Okay, well, how did you find your editor?
I spent I completed the writing around April 2021. I got in contact with them January 2022. It took quite a number of months, weeks of messaging different literary agents, different publishing houses. I got negative responses upon negative responses. Most of the time, the overwhelming majority of them will not even reply back.
They will reply. I know that.
But I knew that was the trend. I knew somewhere out there was a publishing house that would be very interested in the story of Tales of JIDEOFOR. I just knew it was almost like a numbers game. How many emails was I willing to send out? Probably so I sent out probably as much as 500. Because every day I would send out maybe 5, 10, depending on the day. So I did that for a number of months, got a number of. What kept me motivated was that sometimes a number of the publishing houses would get back to me and be like, they find the section of the book, the excerpts are sent to them. But this is not sort of story they usually publish.
And it's not in line with their publishing rules for that period, That
period. So I almost realized that this story is quite interesting. I just needed to find somebody who would be the right person at the right time, at the right
somebody who shares your vision. Yeah.
So I kept doing that. And luckily for me, my publishing house, Tamarind Hill Press in the UK, I'd actually known their CEO way back in my Facebook days. She used to be my Facebook friend back in the day. But then when I told you I was quite popular on Facebook. So I already had that email. So one of the days I was sending my query letters out there, I was like, I think I know a publisher from back then. And I sent her, but then I didn't even know, I forgot that she's Jamaican. Of course, the second part of the story is fine. Second section of takes place in Jamaica all the way in Nigeria. So having someone from that part of the world, who is actually from Jamaica, really helped me build the story, because this is historical fiction. It's very easy to make, should I say, mistakes of history, like anacrostic mistakes, putting elements that didn't exist back in the day, that day and time. So having someone from that culture, from that part of the world, really guided my storytelling. Both CEO and the front editor for Tamarind Hill Press. So I sent in my query letter to them. That was around January 2022, and so basically, she fell in love with me. Other members of our team fell in love with me. Therefore, it was actually published in July. That took us quite a while to get through the editing and all of that. Currently, I'm working on the audio book. That will be released as well before the second book of the program. That will be released this November.
Okay. Would you like to read Would you like to read a portion of your book to us?
Definitely.
So please go ahead.
Okay, now.
Yes, read a chapter or paragraph. Yes, if you want to. Yeah. I always ask. If you want to, fine. If you don't want to, it's also okay. We can also discuss other things. Yes. So
actually, I've been reading a few chapters from.
Okay.
So we have another interview that will be 2 hours.
Okay, fine.
The very last.
Okay, page what?
That will be page 188.
188.
188. I'll read the first two.
188. Okay.
Quite
okay.
JIDEOFOR died bravely. He aimed rightly and his death was swift and not as much as the bullet had pierced his sound and when he died, we regained an abrupt support that felt a wave of energy course through our body. The message had been instantly relayed to our consciousness. The moment he died, not so high a feeling JIDEOFOR death had come with a loud vision went on. When the sound piped down, found himself sitting at home. It brought a surprising yet particular feeling of
upwards, beautiful. So what would you like to see? What would you like to see for your books? What would you like to see happen to your books? You know, all this trilogy. What would you like for the future?
Just as it was, continue achieving because I believe the doctor into the literary world trilogy. Very fair. I think the most popular African Fall Apart.
Things Fall Apart.
I want the same recognition. Funny enough, I've written Things Fall Apart. I've read Things Fall Apart after writing.
Oh really? There was Things Fall Apart, No Longer at Ease, A Man of the People.
Man of the People, yes. So I've actually read Things Fall Apart after because for me personally, I felt what I'm doing, I'm actually gone in for what I think I've done in the 1950s, actually trying to tell a story of African life, African society, for all of these instances. We can't go back to that time again. We have continually been involved. We can't take that out. Today we are speaking English. And our descendants will carry on speaking English. So we can't take that out of our life. We just have to make the positive aspects carry on. I want Tales of JIDEOFOR and the next have, did I say, that sort of has in the literary space. Be like a window into our African society, into our African life, way before the Europeans down here. I really want that journey.
Okay.
Slowly but surely, I know.
Okay, so what are some of the challenges you think that authors, or that is all? What are some of the challenges you think authors we Black authors encounter when trying to get published? You tell your story, you believe you've told a good story, you know within yourself that you've told a good story. What are some of the challenges you think that we encounter when trying to get published?
Well, for one, let me speak from the Nigerian perspective. I've also emailed Nigerian publishers. Although my focus, I really wanted the book to have like a global audience. The target, actually American. One of the problems I could see, at least from the Nigerian space, that it is really quite difficult. No matter how good, but it's almost as if wait, like by man no man, like you can't just wake up and get your book, which is very sad because I know a number of talents out there there is a beautiful manuscript that are waiting to be published. There's less motivation, less enthusiasm for young folks like myself to get their books published. I stay in Warri. I was born and brought up in Warri.
Okay.
The average young person my age do not more or less writing way above their thinking capacity. Why? Is because of the way the literary world is in Nigeria. I don't know how it is out there in the world. Luckily for me, also the publishers online because I've been CEO from way back from my Facebook page. But I know, at least from my experience, I've sent out hundreds of things. So I know it's very difficult. So most of the publishing houses have gotten in touch with. I could find that basically it seems as if black people are quite scarce in the literary space, especially overseas. I don't know why.
Yeah, I always tell people that first and foremost, always realize that publishing is a business.
Yeah.
First, yeah. So you might have a very good story. I've had a publisher write to me one time to say, "Dear Louisa, I like your writing. I enjoyed reading your book, but I'm not confident enough to promote your work. I don't know what market to sell your work to." Yeah. So Chimamanda, I always say that Chimamanda's books found their place. Chimamanda's manuscript was in the right place at the right time and fell into the right hands. Yeah. Do you think that as authors we can support each other? We can help promote each other's work?
Well, from my journey so far, I come to understand that book clubs and book meetings are really quite important. Getting to catch readers now is quite a task. People do not read anymore. Things like TikTok, Instagram, and all of that. It wired us in such a way that we always set out. Nobody wants to actually read something. It's quite difficult, especially for, just as you said, Gen Zs and millennials right now. They find it very hard to settle down. So you have to actually hunt them down. You have to go to where they are. Book meetings, and a number of book meetings in the UK, Caribbean, many of them in Nigeria as well. Because this year, the reader actually can't just find the reader out in the street. Not like music where everyone listens to music out in the street. Go to the clubs, the bars, and all of that. But it's not like that for writing and reading. You have to actually seek out here. So far, I've come to understand that as an author, if you really want to develop yourself, of course, you have to meet other authors. Then the writing, not just the writing aspect, but the business aspect, just as you suggested. The writing basically is broken down into actual writing, business aspects, which are quite important. So, meeting fellow authors, meeting readers, really help you in both ways. Not just the marketing, but also fine-tuning my story. So far with the interviews I've had with last year, I'm sure once upon a lifetime, visiting, twice as better than I've done with JIDEOFOR, because I've learned several things that I didn't know in 2020. Then I was basically alone, cut off from the writing community. Now, getting to meet all of these authors, a number of them in Nigeria, a number of them in Europe, a number of them in Africa, getting to see different writing styles, that each of them more better to tell better than them.
Okay.
So when readers will get when they get to read once upon a lifetime, I'm sure they'll get
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. But for people who want to buy your books, where can they find your books to buy?
You can find it on all major platforms, Amazon, even on Walmart.
Okay.
Basically
everywhere. Okay. So I want to say, Farastein, thank you very much for coming on this podcast. Very big thank you. And I look forward again to chatting with you on a bigger platform next year with our members. So take care. Thank you. Thank you for sending us copies. Yeah. God bless. Bye-bye.